Hey everyone, I'm here to spill the beans on some dark secrets in our builder world. The hidden dangers of vibe coding and self-hosting that nobody really talks about. Now don't get me wrong, we all love freedom and control, the joy of creating, but often we ignore the lurking dangers. And I'm not just talking about minor bugs here, I'm talking about horror stories. Stories that have cost me personally sleep, money, and nearly my entire business. Like the time I thought I'd covered all my bases, only to get a chilling email from Stripe telling me that my worldwide income was about to be shut down because someone had figured out how to use my re-rolled API keys for automated fraud. That was the big one. But before we get there, let me tell you about a few other close calls I've had over time. Let's start off, maybe 8 or 9 months ago with my Comment Genie project. I was really excited. I launched it on a VPS to a set of beta testers, thinking I had everything locked down. I was self-hosting. I was feeling like a bit of a boss, actually. But then something got weird. Suddenly, my VPS was running at 100% CPU usage, grinding everything else and pulling down everything that I was hosting to a halt. My sites went down. Panic set in for me. It turns out my server had actually been compromised, possibly through this vibe-coded app, and a crypto miner was installed, silently siphoning all my resources. Now, I was lucky I was hosting somewhere where they weren't charging me for compute, but imagine how bad that could be if I was paying for every compute cycle. It was a brutal wake-up call, and I realized that self-hosting isn't just about spinning up a server, it's about constant vigilance, robust security patches, and knowing how to secure your VPS from every angle. And also having some solid backup strategies, because if you don't, your free server can quickly become a very expensive liability and worse, part of someone else's botnet. Then there's the specific vulnerability I found in a vibe coding tool that I actually really like for personal tinkering. It's called Lovable. It's great for quick projects and MVPs and getting ideas out there, but a few months ago I noticed something a little bit concerning. There was a loophole that, if you're not careful, could potentially expose your private projects to the public. Now, I tried to make them aware of it a couple of months ago, and I'm still hopeful that they close that loophole. It actually exposed one of my private projects, and I had my API key hammered to the tune of nearly $100. If I'd left that, it could have been thousands of dollars of usage over a month or so. So this is the problem when tools abstract away a lot of that underlying technicality and complexity. They also really take on a huge responsibility for our security. And if they miss something, well, we're the ones on the hook. So it's a reminder that when you're vibe coding with tools that make it easy, we need to be mindful of actually what's happening under the hood. And does the company prioritize security for production-ready applications, or is it geared towards quick prototypes and tests? And do we have to understand that maybe what we're building is potentially publicly available through some private URL? We need to ask these questions and where the buck stops. And that leads me to a question that I see quite a lot, especially when it comes to automation platforms, and that's what's the real cost? People look at self-hosted tools, and I get it. Upfront software costs can be really low or even free. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, of course. Let's take a popular tool like N8N. It's powerful, and for tinkering, it's fantastic. But self-hosting it for serious business use means you're now paying for servers, potentially a full-time DevOps person just to manage it, constant security patches, and you're also personally on the hook for every API change that could break your critical workflows. And with the recent pricing changes, there's a lot of discussion about things like a success tax at scale and where your costs can suddenly spike up and grow like you wouldn't necessarily expect. This, I believe, is the total cost of ownership that no one talks about when they're looking at the free initial software download and self-host of things. And this is precisely where a fully managed platform like Zapier isn't just a convenience, it's actually a strategic business decision. Because with Zapier, you have predictable subscription pricing, no infrastructure costs, no need for additional headcount or managing servers, no midnight outages to fix. They just handle everything, patching, scaling, and around 8,000 pre-built applications and integrations. So you don't have to worry about API breaking changes. Also, beyond that, if you're a serious business, they're truly enterprise ready with SOC 2 Type 2 compliance, SSO, audit trails, and role-based access. With self-hosting, you take on that security risk, as I think I demonstrated earlier in the video, and that can be a monumental hidden cost and a massive headache Well, Zapier empowers everyone, whether you're marketing, sales, support, HR, to build a workflow in minutes, not days or weeks, allowing you to get focused in on your business and not your infrastructure. For operations, a managed secure platform like Zapier is really, in my opinion, the only real choice. And speaking of what can go wrong when you're not fully protected or when you miss one critical detail, my next and final story is one that truly kept me awake at night. The one that made me reevaluate everything about what I know and how I build and deploy in serious business cases. I was doing a tutorial actually on this channel about Stripe and thinking I was being super careful all along the way, showing how you can use an MCP server to access your Stripe account and build products. Well, I generated API keys for the demo and I thought I'd re-rolled them, replaced them, secured everything after the video was done and published. I genuinely believed I'd taken all the necessary precautions, but clearly, someone clever out there found a way to access my Stripe account using the information they shouldn't have had access to. And the first sign was an initial email from Stripe saying a webhook or something like that was failing. And then another flagging suspicious activity and some automated attempts. My heart started to sink. I watched in horror as my entire Stripe account, the backbone of everything, started to get hit with fraudulent transactions, one after the other, every second or so. Stripe started sending warnings and shutting down parts of my account to prevent further damage, just as they should do in this case. But the panic for me was real. For a moment, my entire livelihood was on the verge of being completely switched off because of one overlooked vulnerability. I spent days, I had sleepless nights, I was working with Stripe support back and forth, trying to understand exactly what happened, locking everything down, proving I wasn't the one committing the fraud. It really was an incredibly stressful and expensive ordeal, not just in terms of lost productivity, but the sheer emotional toll I took. And it wasn't just a server down incident, this was a direct threat to my financial stability. It really hammered home that even when you think you're being careful, security is multifaceted, constantly evolving as a challenge. And it's not just about code or the vibe code that you create, it's about everything. Environment variables, deployment pipelines, third-party tools, and the sheer ingenuity of bad actors. And boy, do we know that AI has made them even more powerful now. I'm sure some of the attacks on me were automated by AI. So for business-critical operations, you simply cannot afford to have these kind of blind spots, and the responsibility for securing these systems is absolutely immense. For most businesses, trying to handle all of that in-house is a complete disaster. So you've heard my stories. What is the takeaway from all of these horror stories? It's not that vibe coding or self-hosting is evil or bad. For personal projects and learning, it's absolutely fun. Go for it. You can tinker, you can have self-hosted instances, you can try things out, personal projects, and just loving control of testing and prototyping things. But the crucial question I ask myself is, would this scale up to production-ready business operations? And the answer for me is generally at scale a resounding no. Not when the stakes are my business, my income, my customers' data, the responsibility for security, maintenance, scaling, for all those hidden costs is just too much for most of us to shoulder alone. We need to encourage companies that build these vibe coding tools to actually truly prioritize our security. But until that happens, the smart move, I think, is to leverage platforms designed for security and reliability from the ground up. Don't let the allure of free or easy or self-hosted lead you down the path of hidden danger. I would say prioritize your security, understand the true cost of ownership, and choose the right tools for the job. For business, that often means platforms that take those responsibilities off your plate and let you do what you're best at, which is creating amazing things. So there you go, bit of a monologue and a different video from me this time, but a message I feel needs to go out there because it's not talked about enough in the self-hosting and vibe coding world. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Have you had any self-hosting or vibe coding horror stories? Let me know in those comments down below. And YouTube is showing a video on your screen now you should watch next. Thanks.